What were some of the takeaways that you saw from just the 4x100 race where the USA did not qualify for the final?
I mean, I'm no track and field expert. I am definitely not the type of person to go out here and make critiques like on a sport that I would know in depth, like football or basketball. But for someone that doesn't watch track and field, and for someone that isn't aware of the technical skill that it would take to be successful at that, most people just think you need to be able to run fast, but I would assume there's a lot more technique and craft that you have to work on, like baton exchange. And it just seemed like the first exchange just could not have gone any worse other than dropping the actual baton. Um, it seemed like they could not get a grasp of it. I don't know if the guy that was passing it off, maybe he dropped it prior to passing, or the guy that was trying to grab it while running away couldn't get his hand on it. But it looked like that initial issue kind of led to the USA being in the predicament that they ended with, coming in sixth. And it kind of took them to that third leg to really push forward and really extend themselves past their limit from what it looked like, because obviously they were so far behind for the majority of the race. It was really up to that third individual to make that ground up. And then at that point, when you got to that fourth leg, obviously I would assume, again, I'm not familiar with track and field, the fourth one, the last leg, would be the fastest person. And it seemed like there was a little bit of misconception or, misalignment in baton passing again. And I agree with Carl to a certain extent. Again, I didn't watch the Olympics back then. Obviously, I wasn't even born. I don't watch track and field like that anyway. But the point of the matter is, it didn't look like they were ready for it. It didn't look like they were prepared, and it definitely did not look good for them. And then to lose to some of the countries that they did kind of just looked a little odd, considering that those countries were struggling as well in the beginning of the race. So I mean, what are you really going to do if one of the most decorated Olympians is coming at you sideways? It's got to be for a good reason. And if Carl Lewis got something to say, then obviously that's granted. And from what I saw, he was right. It just didn't look good, and it's definitely not a good look for them going forward.
The way that I see it is that whole race for the US was lost in that first exchange,
Yep.
because had they had a cleaner exchange in that first one, they would have probably finished top 3, top 4. I don't know if they would have finished at the top, but they would have at least qualified had they finished in third or fourth. And because of that bad exchange, you're talking about tenths of seconds that are going against you. And some of these races, especially when it comes to some of these qualifying matches, you're talking about hundredths of a second of a difference. And in this instance, that's where it cost the United States. And it's like you mentioned, the U.S. was behind the entire race. They did start making up some ground in that third leg. And at the beginning of the fourth leg, it looked like they were really in it. But the anchor for the U.S. just lost steam in that second part of his leg and ended up falling to sixth place. And it really kind of goes to show just the inadequacy of this team and the baton exchanges, which have been a notorious issue for the United States going on almost 2 decades at this point. Their last gold medal was back in 2000. I think that was the Athens Olympics, or it may have been the Sydney one. I forget. I think Athens was 2004. Sydney was 2000. So maybe 2000. But since then, they have struggled. And I think in large part, I think it goes to the fact that the 4 men that are participating in that relay, I don't know how long that they're actually training, like where all 4 of them are training from beginning to the end. Because when I look at some of these teams, when I look at, I'll take Jamaica for example. Johan Blake has been on that relay team for I think the last 3 Olympics, if I'm correct. It was like 2012, 2016, and then this one. So he's been one of the main constants. And the way that they train together as a group all the time. So when you watch Jamaica do these relay races, the baton exchange is never an issue because they have it down to a science. It's just basically second nature. With the United States, I don't believe that to be the case. It doesn't seem like these guys are in the right position to make the exchanges. And it seems like there's just something off. There's no rhythm in the exchange. I don't get me wrong. The United States definitely has speed, but I think what's detracting their speed when it comes to these results are the baton exchanges. And until they work that out, until they get really a cohesive group of four individuals that can have clean and crisp exchanges in the batons, the United States will continue to struggle in the 4x100 relay. It won't just be in this one, it will be in future Olympics. And until they get that addressed, you're going to see results like this. I thought it was wild that they couldn't even make the final. That's embarrassing. We've seen some moments here for the United States throughout the Olympics where you kind of shake your head just based that United States is usually at the top of the game when they come into the Olympics. Not in every single category or every single event, but still, by and large, the United States has a pretty strong grasp on most of the events that take place in the Olympics. But this 4x100 one, man, they struggled. And for what Carl Lewis said, I'm in 100% agreement with him. It was embarrassing. And it is completely unacceptable. So they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. They're going to have to figure some things out over the next couple of years. They've got 4 years to figure it out. Well, I take it back. They have 3 years since this one's taking place in 2021. But you're going to have to find some athletes, or you have to find some sprinters, that can train, that could just train better and make better exchange passes.